We have to let go of our necessity for being perfect. You have to let go of the idea that you are going to become a perfect person. And you have to let go of the idea that you are never going to break the rules. You have to let go of the idea that you are never going to have negative emotions, that you are never ever going to treat somebody badly again. And you have to let go of the idea that you are never going to do something out of ego again. Because this is simply untrue. And that is not the point of our practice. That is not the point of what we're doing here. That's not the point of us being spiritual people. You see, the point is, it's actually really simple. It's actually quite simple. It is non-attachment. By becoming unattached, by not allowing external things to control your life, control your mind, your body, you're able to peer between the lines of what's in front of you and see the true essence. You're able to see through the illusion that you are something separate, the illusion that you are a temporary visitor here, and you are able to see the true connectedness. Now, see, sometimes we say connectedness, and this has a very superficial meaning. Sometimes we say that everything is connected, and we just mean that there are we kind of say it as if there are little lines drawing things together. But when I say connectedness, when I say that things are all connected, what I literally mean is that they are the same thing. They are all universally one, singular. The world you live in is universal, the world you live in is singular. And the way that we wade through the illusion is by non-attachment. And you have to remember that attachment is a very tricky thing. It's something that really gets us, because when we become spiritual, we quickly find ourselves becoming attached again to our spiritual identity. And so we start attaching ourselves to even more things, like whereas before we were attached to alcohol, or before we were attached to making ourselves look really nice for people, or before we were attached to watching TV, now we become attached to meditation, we become attached to yoga, we become attached to the usage of crystals, we become attached to raising our vibrational frequency, and we become attached to trying to become enlightened. And what we don't realize is that this is just the ego taking back over. When you become attached to your spiritual practice, again, you have allowed your ego to take back over. And you have undone everything that you did before. Now, there's nothing wrong with this. I'm not shaming people. I'm not trying to put people down or discourage people. That's not the point. But the point is that you do not find spiritual enlightenment through a practice that you do as a person. If I sit down and I meditate, that is not how I find spiritual enlightenment. The way that enlightenment is found is by detaching from things in general, by removing attachments from my own psyche, by allowing myself to move freely through this world, regardless of what is going on around me. And that means attachment to all things. And so when we become confused as people, we become confused because we believe that when we say attachment and moving freely through this world, that what you don't realize is that this kind of detachment from things, this kind of freedom that I'm talking about, allows you to be free no matter where you are or what is happening around you. Remember Nelson Mandela? This man spent 27 years in prison, Nelson Mandela. He spent 27 years in prison serving hard labor. And when he came out, he was still a happy man. When he came out, he was still a good man. He was still trying to do good things. The reason for this is because Nelson Mandela was a spiritually enlightened individual. And what I mean is that he was not attached to anything. And when you become detached from anything, you become free from everything. When you are not attached to anything, that detachment includes your own physical freedom. You are so unattached to what is happening around you, what you have, where you're going, what you're doing. You are so unattached from all of those things that even imprisonment is still freedom. That is spiritual enlightenment. Spiritual enlightenment is not just doing yoga, meditating, and making yourself feel spiritual. Now, again, this is not me I'm not trying to be dogmatic. I'm not trying to put people down for the way that they live their lives or the way that they feel things. I'm just telling you, this is just the way that I see things. And a lot of people, would agree with me. We have to let go of the spiritual ego. Because when we develop a spiritual ego, we have just trapped ourselves again. I'm going to tell you two stories. I'm going to tell you two stories from Zen. These are two Zen koans. These will help illustrate my point. So the first, two monks were sitting at the Zendo and they were meditating. And one of the monks pulls out a cigarette and lights it while they are meditating. And the other monk, in awe, looks at him and says, "What are you doing? We're not allowed to smoke." And the monk says, "Well, I asked the Zen master and he said it was okay." And the other monk replies to him, "Well, how is this possible? Because I also asked the Zen master and he's told me that it was not okay and that it was prohibited." And the other monk says, "Well, what did you ask him?" And the monk says, "Well, I asked him if I could smoke while I was meditating." And the other monk says, "See, there's your problem. It's all about how you ask. See, I asked the monk if I could meditate while I was smoking." I meant to say Zen master. I asked the Zen master if I could meditate while I was smoking. But the point got across, right? So that's a very powerful story. Reflect on that for a minute. Now I'm going to tell you the second story. Two monks were walking through a forest when they came across a woman who was standing in front of a large puddle and was unable to cross because it was going to ruin her dress. Now keep in mind that Zen monks, Buddhist monks in general, Zen is a sect of Buddhism. Buddhist monks in general are prohibited from touching, making physical contact with people of the opposite gender. This has to do with attachment and desire. But one of the Zen monks walks up to the woman and says, "Come on, girl." And he picks her up and he walks her across the puddle. And the other monk is shocked by this. He can't believe that this monk had just done that. And so they get back to the Zendo and they start to meditate. And finally it bothers the other monk so much that he finally says, "How could you have picked up that girl? Don't you see that that's against the rules? We're not allowed to touch women. So how is it okay for you to do that?" And the other monk says, "I left the girl there. Did you bring her with you?" What you'll notice about these stories, this is what I really like about Zen Buddhism. What you'll notice about these stories is that both of them, even though these are originating from a sect of Buddhism, both of these stories are directly justifying the breaking of the rules. You see, they're both justifying going against what is considered to be acceptable or what is considered to be truthfully a part of Buddhism or whatever, right? Because in Buddhism, you're not supposed to participate in physical addictions. You're not supposed to touch people of the opposite gender, etc. And Zen Buddhism points out that these stories, these koans, the thing that they point out is that by vehemently adhering yourself to those rules, you have developed a new attachment. If I tell myself, I cannot smoke cigarettes, I cannot, I never will again, it is against Buddhism, it is against my beliefs, you have developed a new attachment. And as such, you have even more so than actually just allowing yourself to naturally do whatever. You see, you have even more so pushed yourself away from the point. You've taken yourself out of the point. You've missed the point. If you think that... Now, I want to be very careful because I don't want people to listen to my words and say, oh, well, this is moral licensing for me to go and get messed up and go drink a bunch and smoke cigarettes. That's not the point either. You see, the point is to have detachment. The point is to be unattached to what it is that you're doing. So now take this lightly. Don't take me too seriously. Don't use this as an opportunity to go and change a life decision that you've made. Like if you're freaking 6 months sober from alcohol or something, don't take this as moral licensing, please. But somebody in the Zen practice that is truthfully in the Zen practice would probably tell you, when it comes to smoking cigarettes, for example, that it is not even necessary for you to quit smoking. But it is necessary for you to lose your attachment to smoking. Which means that if you're going to smoke, that smoking the cigarette should be something that you do in a state of enjoyment and presence while you're doing it. But that if suddenly all the cigarettes in the world disappeared, it would be of no concern of you. And that you should truthfully, you know how people who are addicted to things say, well, I can stop anytime I want. You should truthfully be able to do that. Because otherwise it is an attachment. You have to find this point where you're not attached to the thing, and you're also not attached to being unattached from the thing. You see, that's the point. You are breaking all strings of attachment that you have to this world. And when you break all strings of attachment that you have to this world, you become extremely, extremely free. When you break all of your attachment, you have become completely free. That is just the truth. And sometimes we even attach ourselves back to our spiritual ego, to our spiritual practice, and we get ourselves all mixed up again. And that's why we go through cycles of feeling really up and really down, is because by attaching ourselves to our spiritual practice, we have done the whole thing all over again. We've created a whole new ego. And the point is to get away from the ego by breaking attachment. So I'm not going to repeat myself again. Thank you guys for watching. Much love to all of you. There is a Discord server link in the description below if you want to talk to me and other like-minded individuals. I love you guys. I hope that this wasn't too heavy of a video today. Much love. I'll see you in the next one.